Welcome to Writer Reading for May 2026, Zombie Survival Awareness Month. This month I will be reading the chapters of How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse. How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse. Chapter 2. Worried about her chances of being hired after delaying her interview to attend her father's funeral, Babette couldn't sit still while she waited, so she began reshelving books and dusting the shelves with a tissue. Her morning interview at the George Peabody Institute Library on Washington Square left her feeling unhopeful. They only wanted someone in person, working on Mondays and Thursdays, and as needed for special projects and pulling documents archived for interlibrary loans. The pay wouldn't cover a week's worth of rent in the city of Baltimore. As she moved to another shelf within sight of the director's door, she noticed an elderly woman come in and sit in the chair near her bag. Shaking her head at the fact no one spoke to the woman, she walked over. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The elderly woman's eyes were keen and intelligent as she asked, "Yes, can you recommend a good book?" "What kind of stories do you like, or do you prefer nonfiction?" Babs asked as she easily fell into the role of a librarian. She was her Aunt Lisa's library assistant before college and spent her entire time at Harvard helping those who did not know how to use a card catalog or read the Dewey Decimal System identifiers to find books. Half an hour later, the woman named Matilda held a stack of 5 books. 2 were contemporary POC fictions, 1 was a mystery, and the last were 2 out-of-print library books on cats, including an old edition of Cats, Librarians, and Libraries, a collection of essays about library cat culture by Phyllis Lottie. "So what do you think about cats in libraries, Babette?" Matilda asked as she checked out her books. "I'm certain people would love them as long as they didn't damage the books. Cat cafes are all the rage." "Oh, have you visited one?" Matilda inquired. "No, ma'am," Babette admitted. Then, thinking about her allergies, she added in politically correct wording, "However, many people are allergic to animal dander, and it would be unfair to deny them access, so part of the patrons could enjoy reading with a cat on their lap." "You are so right, my dear. I think you'll do nicely. Come with me." Matilda walked back to the director's office and went in. Sitting behind the desk, she smiled at Babette, who stared at her in shock. "Forgive my deception, Dr. Bland, but this library was started by my late husband's family, and I worked as a librarian here for 35 years. We take great care in who we hire. Most of your coworkers have computer information technology or English and writing degrees. Many teach virtual classes and, since the start of the second pandemic, only come in person 1 or 2 days a week. We need someone here daily. The hours are long, 10 to 8 on Monday through Thursday and 10 to 5 on Friday and Saturday. We are closed on Sunday. But I will allow you to pick Friday or Saturday off as long as we have staff coverage." "Thank you, ma'am." Babette wanted to collapse in relief, but she held herself as professionally as she could. "I'm so excited to work for such a prestigious and historic library." Tell me, dear, have you found a place to live yet? Mrs. Pratt asked curiously. How will you arrive to work each day? Babette shook her head. I have a few apartments to look at, and then I will be taking mass transit to and from work. Matilda held out her hand. Show me the addresses. She tutted as she looked over the paper. Babs pulled from her bag. No, 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 this won't do at all. These are too far away, and the metro, train, and CityLink buses have not been reliable since the second pandemic. Besides, the crime in these areas would have me worried for you every day. Embarrassed, Babs admitted, I can't afford to live closer and pay my student loan debt. How much is that? Matilda scowled as she asked. Babette repeated the amount, over $300,000, and Matilda gasped. Then she frowned, muttering, The cost of a good education means a lifetime of debt now. She stood up and moved much less feebly than when Babs helped her select her books. I may have a solution. We have had a custodian's apartment in the basement. It is just used for storage now, but I will let you live in it while you work for the library. Matilda led Babs to the underground level. There were boxes in the small studio apartment, but the kitchenette and three-quarter bath were clean and in good condition, despite being older than she was. Babette asked, How much would be deducted from my pay to stay here? Nothing. The board capped the salary I could offer you. I think this will help make up for that, Matilda insisted. To be honest, you are the only qualified candidate I have interviewed for this position since your predecessor passed away during Pandemic 3. The only restrictions are no guest and no candles. And of course, you will have full use of the library's electric car for errands and book deliveries. Your library still does book deliveries? Babs was shocked. Yes, I know. Technology and ebooks are all the young people want, but over half our patrons are elderly. I would like to begin the deliveries again, and we have a machine to sterilize the books using ultraviolet light and aerolized disinfectants. If you are willing to pull the books for delivery and sanitize them upon pickup, that is. Oh, yes, ma'am. I think it is wonderful you still deliver books. Babette responded as she paced the length of the very long but narrow room. Very good. I will get you the keys and key cards to the library. I'll hire some movers to put these boxes elsewhere, and on Monday we will introduce you to the rest of the staff. Matilda seemed satisfied. Dr. Bland, let's go back to your office and we will sign the contract paperwork. Glancing around the room one last time, Babette breathed out in relief. This was more than she could hope for. Upstairs, she signed the paperwork. The salary would be enough with the free rent. There was a non-competition clause, so she wouldn't be able to work part-time at the George Peabody Library. But it was fine. She could find something else to earn a little extra. She was also grateful Matilda offered to let her stay with her until the movers and painters were finished. The meager inheritance she received from her father's life insurance would buy some furniture, and when added to the things in storage from her Harvard dorm room, she could settle in quickly. Returning to the train station, she got her suitcases from a large locker and headed back to Mrs. Pratt's home. Babette was surprised to learn the entire block was part of the library and even had its own power and water source in case of natural disaster. Over dinner, she and Matilda shared a lovely conversation about the need to protect printed books Then they talked about how the city functioned during the pandemics, where to order groceries, and such things. By the time Babette went to bed, she felt more hope for her future than she had in a very long time. 2 months later. Babette looked at the list of requested books and frowned. Most of them were already pulled and tagged to go out. Ancient Egypt fever struck with the arrival of a touring museum collection and the announcement on the news of a lost city discovered. Everyone wanted to know everything. "There's a call about that Egyptian Prince Ba something again," Keisha huffed. I'll have to look it up," Carl offered as he pulled out his phone. Babs finished filling a simple paper bag and responded with the information she researched the week before. Prince Pharaoh Bakre, or Ba-Ephra, or Bakiris, as is the Hellenized name of the Egyptian forgotten pharaoh. He may have ruled for 2 years, starting in either 2532 or 2498 BC during the 4th dynasty. He was the son of Khafre, grandson of Khufru, and preceded his brother or half-cousin, Pharaoh Menkaure. His name was stricken from all dynasty records, and Egyptologists theorize it is possibly because he was a worshipper of Ra, the sun god. His tomb was found barely started in the royal Acropolis, with only a broken cartouche at the bottom and filled with the trash from constructing other tombs. Keisha looked at her hatefully as Carl shook his head and demanded, "How could you possibly know all that?" "I'm the head librarian. It's my job to remember things without having to Google them every day or week." Babs sounded bored as she said it, with a glance at Keisha. Then she put the last bag of books on the cart. "I'm going to put these deliveries by the back door." Keisha flipped off Babs to her back as she walked away. Carl pulled her hand down as one of the elderly patrons glared at her, slamming his books on the counter in front of Carl, who scanned his card and then the books. "Listen, miss," the gentleman scolded. "I was there last week when Dr. Bland told you the same thing. If you can't remember information for a week, how are you working at a library? Why, I can remember how to." And he lectured them for 20 minutes on repairing engines and how he learned to do it decades earlier by just watching his father. He ended with, "You need to listen to Dr. Bland. When she tells you something, she can find information better than your phone and find the real information and not that fake stuff." "You're absolutely right, Mr. Smith. Dr. Bland is a good resource," Carl responded patronizingly. After Mr. Smith walked away, he snapped at Keisha. "Are you trying to get fired?" "They won't fire me. I have a degree in language arts and a teaching certificate," Keisha retorted, then reminded, "Why do I have to do what she always says? She is 10 years younger than me." "She also has graduated high school a year early and earned her Ph.D. by 23, and you only have a bachelor's degree. Don't put her down because she's younger than you." "She looks older, with her weird pale hair and those white streaks." Keisha sat down hard in her chair and waved her hand. "Why is this place even still open? Those dusty shelves should be replaced with computers and—" "You're fired." Bab's voice silenced her rant. "You can't fire her. She's the only one who can work on Thursdays," Carl refuted Babs, as the head librarian glared at the online teacher. "But she doesn't work when she is here on Thursdays. She doesn't reshelve books or pull for pickup orders. She can barely be bothered to answer patrons' questions more than to type in the information terminal and then wave her hand with a rude, "It's over there somewhere." Babs mimicked her voice and gesture. I would rather do it all alone than spend my time apologizing for her rudeness. And her ESL class only has a 20% enrollment quota with a 90% drop or incomplete rate. I have had 3 people besides myself monitoring her last class. Currently, we are her only 4 students. She just says difficult to pronounce words over and over while making the class repeat them. You're not taking my ESL class, Keisha refuted her. I grew up in San Francisco and learned Mandarin from my aunt's best friend, Babs announced in lilting Mandarin and a high falsetto. In English, she added, Mr. and Mrs. Tran are your tag-along speaking students, and my friend Bill goes by his Russian name William. You bitch, Keisha snarled. I am not a canine. Maybe if you engaged with your students like Carl, Angela, and Deshawn do, you wouldn't be looking for a new job tomorrow, Babs retorted. The woman's eyes turned hard with hate as she spat. At least I'm a real black woman, and not some mixed blood who doesn't even know who her people are. That hurt, but Babs knew better than to flinch, or even look away. She had dealt with this kind of hate her whole life, especially from her mother's other children. I know exactly who my people are, and the color of their skin does not matter as much as their intelligence. They aren't ruled by racism and hate because someone else is a few shades paler. Your little racist remark and the prejudiced way you treat your non-black and non-white students will be noted in your dismissal summary. I suggest you don't use us as a reference. Now get out of my library. Keisha pulled her bag out from under her desk and threw her ID card and key card on the floor as she stormed out, shouting profanities, insults against Bab's father being white, and accusations of being unfairly treated, and the threats of suing. Babs didn't realize she was shaking until she saw a pale strand of her hair hanging in her face. She pushed it back and turned to face Carl. Do you have anything to add to her tirade about those like me who aren't black enough? I'm sorry, Carl stammered. He looked flush under his dark skin. I didn't realize. That people like me face racism from both colors? Babs shrugged. My mother's other children were 2 decades or more older than me. They refused to accept that she and my father got married and had me late in life. They mocked me every time I met them. I've learned to deal with it. I'm sorry, Carl repeated. Thank you. Can you please write up what you heard and saw? I will need to pull the surveillance and have a witness statement will protect the library from a lawsuit. Babette hated to think that Keisha would do such a thing to the community icon, but she knew it was better to be safe than sorry. Carl nodded, then asked sheepishly, Are you working at the pharmacy tonight? Yes. Do you need your dad's medication filled? She pulled out a postie and then scribbled a note when he nodded. I'll put the order in when I get there. Working the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. overnight shift on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the 24-hour pharmacy allowed her to earn some extra money and pay her student loan debt without violating her non-competition clause. The pharmacy was no longer allowed to sell books or magazines of any kind since the 3rd pandemic. Thanks, Dr. Bland. You know, you can just call me Babs or Babette. I'm still paying off my Ph.D. She smiled as she tried to lighten the mood. He looked at her in confusion for a moment, then started, Dr. Bland, I mean Babette, why did you get a degree in library science? I mean, why books when everything is going digital? She thought for a moment. First, I got the same degree from the same school as my aunt, so you see, it's a family thing. Honestly, my father would have made a great librarian and archivist, but his dyslexia made school difficult for him. And second, because printed books are a physical and tactile representation of our knowledge, mythology, and history as a civilized people. Babs waved her hand to the library full of books. If the internet crashed tomorrow because of an EMP caused by terrorists, or a CME solar flare wiped out the power grid and electronic networks, these dusty shelves will hold the wealth of our knowledge and history. Google and Wikipedia can both be altered by pranksters and the government by just changing a few lines of code. But changing the printed word is much harder because they can never be certain they got rid of all the copies. Look at what the Catholic Church did to the Bible, and then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Gutenberg Bible and the following uses of the printing presses made the written word available to the poor, just like this library. Information is power, and so is the lack of it. Whoa. Carl looked surprised by her response. I never thought about it that way. I figured they would just reboot the internet if it went down. Oh, they could do that, but it would take a few years, and in the meantime, people would still need to know how to grow crops, or fix something, or diagnose and treat diseases. As much as everyone loves technology, we still need printed books. She patted his shoulder. We're closing in 5 minutes. Would you mind writing up your statement while I do the walkthrough and check the bathrooms? Yes, ma'am. He watched her go to the top floor and shook his head. She was young enough to be his daughter, but suddenly the things his grandmother said about some people having old souls made so much sense. He realized the melon streaks in her hair fit her personality perfectly. Next, How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zombpocalypse, Chapter 3.